Hey, what's up guys, Rev here. So today we have another round of localizer related drama to cover, some very concerning developments where Japanese developers are bending the knee to Western outrage and are publicly stating that they want to give more trust and authority to English localizers in the translation process for games going overseas. Now, they are saying that they want to trust people like Katrina, who have been vandalizing Japanese media for years and years, and in this clip that we'll watch later in the video, openly state that their biggest regret is that they can't change more. Now, this is an article that a lot of people have been talking about over the past couple of days. It was released by the Japan Times, and it talks about this entire issue of localization of Japanese media into the Western market. Now, this is getting dunked on by everybody. Let's give this article a quick glance. It begins by saying behind the global success of Japanese video games lies a delicate task, appealing to overseas players whose expectations on issues such as sexism are increasingly influencing the content of major titles. With the majority of sales for big games now outside Japan, everything from slang words to characters' costumes must be carefully considered for a global audience. It's a complex process that has come a long way since the Wild West of the 1980s and 90s, according to one high-profile localization team. Now, the big mistake that they're already making is confusing what this market outside of Japan is. This market should not be the loud minority on places like Twitter who are offended by everything. That focus should be on the actual gamers who are interested in these Japanese products, who don't care about 99.9% of the issues that the people are screeching about on Twitter. But going on, it says localization is now an integral part of the design process with international gamers in mind from the start. One key example is how Japanese game developers dress their heroines as the #MeToo movement changes mindsets, says Frank Gentry, senior localization manager at Japanese game giant Bandai Namco. We tell them that the cleavage is a bit too exposed, or the skirt is a bit too short, he adds. Before, they weren't very flexible, but they've become more proactive on such subjects, which is an absolute shame to see because they are bending their will to that of people who have no interest in this game. The people who are upset about cleavage or skirts being too short in video games are a bunch of people who are not going to buy this product. They are a bunch of terminally online Twitter users who have 50 mental illnesses listed in their bio. They can barely manage their own food stamps to sustain themselves, and you think they have expendable income to pay $70 for your localization of a Japanese media? Are you kidding me? It's absolutely ridiculous that they're even keeping these people in mind. So then the next section of the article is titled, No Longer Acceptable, and it says, a better understanding of Japanese culture among players means adaptations can be more subtle. The Yakuza series is now called Like a Dragon, closer to the original Japanese. LGBTQ caricatures and sexist cliches have also been axed. Many representations which were normal in Japan in the first Like a Dragon games are no longer acceptable today, the series executive producer says. We ask our teams in the United States and Europe to read the game's script, and they tell us if they see things that wouldn't be acceptable in their country. Changes often focus on alcohol, politics, or religion, while cultural reference points also differ. When there are people dressed in black boots and big leather coats in Europe, that could bring to mind a Nazi uniform. So referring to this last part, if you see those things and immediately think of Nazis, you don't need an opinion on the localization of Japanese media. You need therapy because that is not normal, okay? But there's also this big focus on what's acceptable in the United States and Europe is focusing on the wrong people. It's focusing on the loud minority that is screeching about things that the vast majority of actual gamers have absolutely zero interest or care for. And these ideas of politics being a focus, well, yeah, it's politics that they want to inject. And if there's politics already existing in the Japanese media that they disagree with, they will localize that as they see fit. That's just how localizers work. But predictably, there was a lot of outrage on social media about this article and the fact that this localization issue has gone all the way to the actual Japanese development now. So you have some responses like this ratioing the initial post saying, Japan's cultural works became popular worldwide largely because they were uniquely Japan's cultural works. It didn't need pandering to an international crowd to garner the big success it did. Doing so now will defeat the entire purpose/appeal of Japan's cultural works, which is a great way of saying this because how do you think these games got so popular that they actually mattered in terms of sales? Because the majority, as the article says, are now being made overseas. How do you think that happened in the first place? Do you think it was the localizations that made it happen, or do you think it was the proper translations and the authentic Japanese products that were coming over? Here's another one saying, it's not happening. Localization just translates the original intents. And then it goes to, sure, it's happening, but it hardly impacts, as it's just a few words and references at best. And now we've gotten to the point where it's happening at every level of development and the source, and it's actually good it's happening. That's the level we got at. So we were talking about that with the localization controversies over the past couple of weeks. It started off with a reaction from localizers and their supporters saying, it's not happening, it's not happening. And that's like, well, it's happening, but it's only a little bit. And now it's like, well, it's happening all over the place, and it's a good thing. And if you disagree, you're a bigot. That's the level we're at. Here's another reply saying, localizers do not represent Western gamers. They form a small clique of activists with radical and different ideas from the average Westerner. There's no need to change games for them. We want the Japanese experience. They're basically saying that we should just trust the localizers in this article. That is their main point. Just trust the localizers to understand what's best for the Western audience. And we're supposed to trust people like Katrina. We have talked about this localizer many times. She's infamous for all of her bad localizations and mistranslations. And this clip has recently resurfaced. This was posted originally back in May of 2023, but it has made the rounds once again on social media. And it is a clip of Katrina in the flesh talking about some of her concerns in the localization industry, her concern that she can't change more than she already is.
For example, like with game localization, you're usually doing it, there's going to be an English dub. None of the Japanese source material is going to be available to the player. So you can get a lot more creative with it. You can, adjust the cultural interpretations as you need to. At some cases, you can even contact the developer and be like, hey, I want to change this little visual aspect so it works better with our culture. So you have a little bit more control over what the player is going to experience as a localizer. However, when you're working with video content, especially animated content, with animation, you can do so many fantastical things. Like you can have crazy stuff popping in and out. You can have like almost like a music video-esque quality where there's like abstract things happening in the background, or they zoom in on an object that really shouldn't exist. Like there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with animation, but it's on screen and you can't change that. So when it comes to stuff like cultural references, there's nothing much that I can do to change that.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, these are the localizers that these Japanese developers are going to put more trust into when it comes to translating these products for an overseas market. Someone who's saying that they want to change as much as possible, and the biggest issue with their job is that they're not skilled enough to change things like anime and other visuals where it's more difficult for them to inject whatever localization and message that they want. It's absolutely insane, and the gaslighting goes so far. So people have been rehashing old tweets by Katrina from about a year or two ago, where she's saying things like, there's no legitimate criticism about localizations, just people wanting to be mad for the sake of being mad. But down here she says, there isn't a vast conspiracy to ruin your anime or games, guys. We love them as much as you do, and we love being able to work on them. We're not going to jeopardize the rare chance to work on what we love by transing all the Persona characters. Interesting how she talks about loving the product while she's vandalizing it. In fact, she has openly said things like this, where last year she was responsible for the Inukai-san's dog adaptation, and she said this: I am unfortunately doing some of my finest localization work on the anime about a high school girl who's legitimately sexually attracted to a corgi. Obviously, she doesn't have much respect for this series, and she was just talking about how she loves all of the things that she works on. Well, that's a lie. So you have clearly no respect for this media that you're responsible for translating. How am I supposed to trust that you're going to give an honest and accurate translation when you don't even respect the product you're responsible for? But going on, that's an attitude that's been shared across her entire career. We've seen many different infamous bad localizations she's responsible for. We talked about these in the past. And also supporting other localizers as they rewrite characters entirely for their own political motivations. Like that time she supported another localizer's choice to rewrite a cross-dressing male character into a trans character. Well, as it turns out, all of those localizers were wrong, and 7Cs would issue an apology and fix these translating errors. And going forward, another tweet got dredged up from Katrina. It says, Accusations about us intentionally changing stuff to inject woke politics are so crazy too. If we were caught doing that stuff, we'd be fired so fast. And there are dozens more translators who are more than happy to take our place for less pay. So I guess at this point, it's pretty obvious by her own standards, she should lose her job, right? Well, another cool trend that's been happening is that people are starting to spread the message of these bad English localizers to Japanese users as well, because they are shocked to discover a lot of these terrible localizations of Japanese media. And you see more people like this adding subtitles to these clips so Japanese users can understand what localizers like Katrina are saying about Japanese media that they're responsible for. And I think this is a very good thing. Well, going forward, seeing the backlash that original Japan Times article was getting, Sega on their official Twitter account decided to join in for some reason with this tweet saying, "From Japan to the world, how to translate a game. Do you know about game localization, which translates games appropriately based on each country's language and culture?" I was interviewed for localization. From Japan to the world, how to translate a game. Beautiful stuff. How do you think this went over, ladies and gentlemen? Not well. Because this is a far cry from their past where we had creators and developers working for these companies saying that they didn't want to appeal outside. They wanted to make their games appeal to Japan first and then next. If people like that product that's being focused on Japan in an overseas market, great. But you don't tailor your needs to an overseas market first. But predictably, the responses to this were brutal. Raging Golden Eagle here saying, this is exactly how you lose customers. Your games become popular in the West because we like them as they were. If you censor them, we don't want them anymore. Another response saying, thank you for showing your true colors. I will adjust my purchases accordingly. And that's the best way to hit back at all these changes. Don't buy these products from developers who are employing these localizers and saying that they're going to trust them, because that is a terrible, terrible direction for this industry to go. Here's another one translated also for Japanese users. It says, localization is cancer. Westerners don't know what quality content is, even if it hits them in the face. Localization has become nothing more than a way for those with fragile fringe politics to change the intent of the original work to make themselves feel better. The reason Japanese media is loved all over the world is because it's Japanese. We do not pander to so-called global audiences. Such people should just cry and remain angry. The rest of us will continue to watch, love, and support authentic, unaltered, uncensored Japanese media. And I think that's the best way to sum up the reaction to this on Twitter from gamers and alike. But that's going to do it for this situation. Some disturbing developments. So as always, make sure to share your thoughts about these topics in the comments section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.